It's 1984, and the Philadelphia Flyers are gearing up for a season in which they feel like they can win it all. A team consisting of stars such as Tim Kerr, Brian Propp, and impressively that season, goaltender Pelle Lindbergh. Lindbergh, a Swedish goaltender, earned a starting job with the Philadelphia Flyers after being drafted in the second round, 35th overall, in the 1979 NHL entry draft. With legendary goaltender Bernie Parent retiring, the Flyers were on the search to fill the gap in goal. They were hoping that Pelle would be the new star in between the pipes. Pelle had idolized and even modeled his playstyle after Flyers great Bernie Parent, even going as far as wearing the identical mask as the Hall of Fame goaltender. It was safe to say that it was a match made in heaven. Just like Parent, Lindbergh had greatness in his blood, and at 25 years old, he was the backstop for Philadelphia. Pelle, or he was better known to his North American teammates as Gump, would go on to impress in his first year as a starter. He would play 65 games in the 84-85 season, where he posted 40 wins, 17 losses, and just 7 ties, with a .302 goals against average paired with an .899 save percentage, with 2 shutouts to boot. This would be more than enough to propel the Flyers into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Lindbergh would be even more impressive under the microscope with the playoffs, however. Through 18 games, he posted a .250 goals against average and was virtually impossible to beat night in and night out. Although, with a knee injury suffered earlier on in the season starting to bug Pelle and running into Wayne Gretzky's Oilers, the Flyers season would end in disappointing fashion by watching the Edmonton Oilers hoist Lord Stanley's hardware over their heads and the Flyers leaving empty-handed. Pelle's impressive season didn't go unnoticed, however, as he was awarded the Vezina Trophy for the NHL's best goaltender that season. This is obviously an important and meaningful award in itself, as every goaltender dreams of being the best of the best, but this meant more to Lindbergh, as he was the first European goaltender in NHL history to win the award. Pelle, now a coveted star in the NHL, was in his second year of being a full-time starter. On November 7th, he helped the Flyers to a relatively easy 6-2 victory over the Chicago Blackhawks, marking his 99th career win in the NHL. But little did anyone know, this would be Pelle's last. On November 9th, because of his impressive performance against Chicago, he'd be given the night off. Later that night, he'd get a call from friends to join them at the bar close by the Flyers' practice facility. There, he would meet up with some teammates, as well as a friend, Ed Parvin. Around 5 a.m. on November 10th, 1985, after a night of drinking, Lindbergh, as well as Ed Parvin and his girlfriend Kathy McNeil, left the bar. Parvin and McNeil, without a ride home, asked Pelle for a ride. He agreed. They left the bar, got into his prized, customized red Porsche, and took off into the night. Driving under the influence of alcohol is illegal and dangerous by itself, never mind when you're driving at high speeds. In the early hours of November 10th, Pelle lost control of his car on a winding road and crashed head-on into a white concrete wall in front of a school. His alcohol level was double the legal limit at the time of the crash. The impact was so intense that the entire hood had crumbled into the front seats. He was rushed to hospital where he had a broken leg, jaw, and hip, but worst of all, he was brain dead. Although his 2 friends, Parvin and McNeil, had survived after being treated in hospital, Pelle wasn't so lucky. He would pass away the next day, leaving behind his fiancée, Kirsten Page. Just like that, he was gone. Pelle Lindbergh had passed away at the age of 26. His body was returned to Sweden, where he was put to rest. Fans and teammates of Lindbergh said their goodbyes during the pre-game ceremony on November 14th, less than a week after the accident, and exactly a week since he had recorded his final NHL victory. Every Flyers player for the remainder of the 85-86 season wore a 31 patch on their shoulder, paying respects to their late teammate. To this day, the Flyers have unofficially retired number 31. Pelle Lindbergh was regarded as one of the best players in the league at the time of his death, but maybe most importantly, one of the kindest. A one-of-a-kind guy with a heart of gold. Pelle and his fiancée Kirsten had planned to get married later that year, but it never happened. It's April 21st, 1951, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are taking on their bitter rivals, the Montreal Canadiens, in the Stanley Cup Finals at the Maple Leaf Gardens. With Toronto leading the series 3-1, they have the opportunity to end the series that night and win their 9th Stanley Cup in franchise history. The game would need extra time as it was tied after 3 periods. It was then in overtime where 24-year-old defenseman Bill Barilko would lunge ahead and score the Stanley Cup winning goal. The fans filled the ice in celebration as their hometown Leafs were once again champions. Bill was the hero, and now being treated as such as the fans carried him off the ice. That would be the last goal he would ever score. In August of 1951, just a handful of months since Bill had scored the triumphant goal, he decided to embark on a fishing trip before heading back to Toronto for training camp. Barilko was visiting family in his hometown of Timmins when he received the invitation from friend Henry Hudson to join him on the fishing adventure. Henry, who was an experienced flyer, owned a single-engine Fairchild's 24 plane, and he planned to fly them to the destination. Bill's mother wasn't as thrilled about this fishing trip, however, begging Bill not to travel to northern Quebec by plane. Bill's father had perished in a plane accident, and she didn't want her son to take the risk of circling the same fate. He brushed his mother off, even laughing at her concern. His mother was so angry she didn't kiss Bill goodbye. The two men left en route to their fishing trip Friday morning, Bill's last trip before the start of another rigorous NHL season. They spent the weekend doing what they set out to do, and after a weekend of relaxation and catching fish, it was time to come home. The two men were refueling at Rupert House on Sunday afternoon. That was the last time anybody would see the men alive. They never returned home. The Royal Canadian Air Force was quick to take action, setting up an aerial search for the men's aircraft. The searchers covered over 78,000 square miles, and at this point have practically turned over every rock trying to find the men. They searched for over 2 months, and there was still no sign of them. They had completely vanished off the face of the earth. The search had ended without finding the aircraft. The lengthy search totaled over $385,000, roughly $3.7 million in today's world. Back at the Maple Leaf Gardens, training camp began without Bill, and so did the entire next season, and 10 more after that. 11 years had come and gone, and there was still no sign of Barilko. Now, the year is 1962, and for the first time since April 21st, 1951, the Maple Leafs were Stanley Cup champions for the first time since the disappearance of Barilko. 11 years and 1 day had passed since the last time the Leafs had hoisted the cup, and just a handful of weeks later, on June 7th, 1962, Bill and Henry were finally found. A helicopter pilot noticed the reflection of light from down below on the ground, and when investigated, deep in the thick brush, roughly 62 miles from Cochrane, Ontario, what was left for the wreckage was found. Henry's beloved Fairchild 24 was found submerged partially in the water, with no wings and partially burned. Inside the cabin were 2 skeletons, those skeletons later to be determined as the remains of Bill Barilko and Henry Hudson. They were found roughly 35 miles off course. After over a decade of disappearance, they had finally been found. In the 11 years Bill was missing, there was many theories on what had happened to him, or if anything had even happened to him at all. Some speculating that he faked his death to live out a life of crime, and some even thinking that he had fled to Russia to teach North American hockey secrets overseas. But alas, none of that was true. The plane had went off course, and the 2 men had tragically passed away in the plane crash. Bill was a gifted hockey player whose life had ended far too soon. His cup-winning goal in 1951 will go down as one of the most spectacular moments in the NHL and pro sports history. This story has always blown me away, as if it were part of a movie. The hero scores the game-winning Stanley Cup goal, goes missing for 11 years, and then his team finally wins the Stanley Cup just weeks before finding his body. Bill Barilko's number 5 has been retired by the Toronto Maple Leafs and hangs from the rafters to this day. Safety is something that has been increasingly focused on in the NHL for the last decade. Many small equipment tweaks have been made by many of the players, some wearing ear guards and even skate protectors, but because of possibly the most gruesome and tragic incident to ever happen in the history of hockey, most players in pro leagues, as well as minor and amateur leagues, are now wearing neck guards. Adam Johnson, born on June 22, 1994, was an American-born hockey player hailing from the state of hockey, Minnesota. Adam grew up with dreams of playing in the NHL. His draft year came and went, and he would go undrafted. To many aspiring hockey players, this is usually the end of their NHL dreams, but not for Adam. After his draft year had come and gone, he played for the University of Minnesota Duluth in the NCAA. After a couple of impressive seasons playing in college, Adam got a call from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Johnson would sign a contract to play for the Penguins organization starting in the 2017-18 season, where he would make his pro hockey debut with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in the AHL. After a successful first-year pro, the next season he would get some time in the NHL with the big club. In the 2018-2019 season, Johnson would play 6 games and post his first 2 NHL assists. The season after that, in the 1920 season, he would play 7 games for the Penguins and post his first and only NHL goal. But that would be it for Adam and the NHL. The next few seasons he bounced around a bit, playing in Sweden, going back to the AHL, playing for the Ontario Reign and the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, and then back to Europe to play in Germany. All this leading up to the 23-24 season, where he would sign a contract in the UK with the Nottingham Panthers in the EIHL. This is where the tragic accident would take place. On October 28, 2023, Johnson would suit up for yet another game with his new home in the UK. During the game, Adam would be carrying the puck down the left wing in the neutral zone, approaching the other team's blue line. A player from the opposing team tried to come up through the middle and knock Adam off the puck, but clipping one of Johnson's teammates on the way to do so. This caused the opposing player's leg to kick up into the air, and by the time he had glided into Adam, he was going fast, skate first. The player's skate slammed into his neck with force, and Adam hit the ice immediately, bleeding profusely. The crowd went silent. The players in the crowd of roughly 8,000 fans watched in horror as the trainers and the medical staff raced onto the ice to the aid of the fallen player. The arena was evacuated and emergency crews rushed onto the scene. Adam was rushed to the nearest hospital, and by the time he arrived, it wasn't long before he was pronounced dead. He had died at just 29 years old. I'm going to avoid delving too deep into the legal portion of the story, as it is a little bit complicated and long, but to sum it up, this is an ongoing legal case at the time of making this video. The player that had struck Johnson on accident had been arrested and placed on bail in November of 2023. He was then bailed once again at the end of April 2024. The investigation is still going on to this day. Whether you think this was an accident like myself, or you think that it was deliberate, this is undeniably one of the most horrific things to ever happen in the sport of hockey. To think that you could be skating down the ice 1 minute and gone the next is horrifying. Clint Malarchuk, former goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres in the late 80s, knows this far too well. On March 22, 1989, the Sabres took on the St. Louis Blues. A Blues skater was coming down the left side in the offensive zone and seemingly innocently threw the puck at the net, hoping that his teammate Steve Tuttle would be in position to receive the pass and deflect it into the net. While Tuttle was crashing the net, he got tied up with Sabres defenseman Uwe Krupp and slamming into goaltender Clint Malarchuk. The net flew off and Clint went down. Many started to panic as they realized that Tuttle's skate had come up and clipped Malarchuk in the neck, partly severing his carotid artery as well as partially cutting his jugular. Clint was rushed to hospital and was somehow saved by the paramedic that had stuck his fingers inside of Malarchuk's wound to prevent him from bleeding out. Undeniably, player safety has come a long way from where it was 20 to 30 years ago, with many goaltenders beginning to wear neck guards around the league after seeing the freak accident that had happened to Clint, but skaters did not follow suit. After incidents like these, there is still no enforcement in the NHL to wear neck guards, and that may change in the near future because of the freak accident that happened to Adam Johnson. Many teams in the NHL unpromptedly began to wear neck guards after seeing what had happened to Adam Johnson on that awful October night. If there is a positive to be pulled from the story, it may just be that this awful tragedy is what prevents more accidents like this to happen to players in the minor leagues and pro leagues in the future. And that's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was definitely a little bit more of a different video than anything I've ever done on the channel. Definitely a heavier one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tried to pull some stories that, some of them I knew already, a few of them I did not. I really didn't know a lot about Pelle Lindbergh until delving deeper into this. Really just, tragic stories. But I don't know, I really like this kind of thing. If you guys want to see more of this, definitely let me know in the comments below. Would love to make another one of these. This is volume 1. I plan to make volume 2 if you guys want it. So, it's the off season. I got a little bit more time, not as much Jets coverage going on. So, yeah, definitely let me know if you want more of this. But, yeah, leave a comment down below. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.